Morning, Nathan. How are you? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
There we go. I thought I hit that button. I guess I didn't.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Thanks for accommodating my schedule. I was rushed to get home on Wednesday night and was eating dinner when you invited me to the hangout, and then I knew I wouldn't be able to get those two things in at the same time as
Oh, that's
so this worked out better. Plus, I was in New York, so I appreciate letting me start a little later this morning. Yesterday was a long day.
that's fine. I don't mind.
Good.
I
Good.
understand getting stuck at work. That happened to me that first week.
Oh man, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, how's your class going this semester with the
It's
studio?
good. We changed things up a little bit. The one thing that I really was hesitant about doing was there was a comment from your group that sort of really supported and appreciated the team effort to do the research in North End, and it drew people together, and it made the online kind of DNA of the class a lot more of a team building sort of scenario. And I was reluctant to abandon that, but I also felt like it was a really interesting opportunity for the the people that we have now to really teach us something about where they are. And so I went into the studio knowing that I was going to do this, and it was kind of like a risk reward scenario. And as it turns out, I've got people sort of all over the place, and I'm kind of I'm appreciating that variety. And now everyone's going to teach us about, you know, Columbus, Columbus, Ohio, and Grand Blanc and Flint, and so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because I know everybody where they grew up, they've got that one piece of vacant land that they always wanted to do something with.
Yeah,
And now you're giving them that opportunity
yeah,
to do.
and then there's certainly that too. So I think the reward will be high, given the risk that we won't have any sort of team building thing. But like right out of the gate, a lot of people are auditing. I mean, we've only had 3 weeks of class, and a lot of people are already auditing each of the sessions. So I think so far so good. How's it going with you?
Well, let's see here. That conceptual estimating course is turning out to be quite interesting. It's going to
Good.
be it's going to be complicated. This guy from up in Auburn Hills from CCC Commercial Contracting Corporation or something like that. Um, they do a lot of the larger projects. They're like the fourth or fifth largest construction contracting firm in the state. So he brought in 8 different options for the groups of 2 to look at, and
Cool.
each one of these construction document set has like this is the one that we've got right here. It's got like 200 pages in it, and he said he took out at least half. This is a Smith Group project up in Flint for General Motors, some sort of museum renovation from an old manufacturing facility.
Cool.
Yeah, Type 4 construction, which makes it even more interesting
Yeah, yeah.
because you don't get to work with Type 4 construction much anymore.
That's timber construction, right?
Heavy timber.
Yeah,
With
I've never dealt with that, so that's cool. It
really,
must
we've
be a historic building.
we've had 2 come through our office at work. Only one of
Wow.
them actually ended up turning into construction document work.
Uh-huh.
It was a 6 or 7 story storage building near the Detroit Red Wings old building, the
Yeah.
Cobo Hall, right near there. We went up on
Awesome.
the roof and you could actually see Cobo Hall right next door.
Uh-huh.
Haven't heard anything about that. We started the construction documents on it because we were just renovating it and he wanted to turn it into an office building. So it's
Right.
basically just fixing the structure. But uh, it kind of disappeared after about a month of working on it. So
Sure.
I guess he decided he didn't want to do it.
Sure.
Anyway, that was interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think, we had one project that came through as a sort of a proposal just for reskinning a Type 4 building, but we've not gotten to go ahead to do anything on that. And I expect that we won't, but really that's as close as I've come to it, and it would be interesting to do for sure.
Yeah, it really is interesting because we were actually the owner who was trying to do. Oh no, this was something else. The theater that we were working on a while back,
Right.
the exterior renovation, just for now, the owners of that were actually, their offices were actually based in a Type 4 building that was renovated right in downtown, like a couple streets off Campus Martius. So that was really interesting too, to see how they had braced the wood frame structure to get the extra loads associated with a modern office building
That's
into
cool.
this thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? You get the dead load of all the file equipment and storage and all of that, so you've got to do something with it. Very cool.
In that particular case, they put two steel beams right directly next to two steel columns, right in line with the wood column, instead of just trying to put like a wood plate directly onto the column, which is what I would have expected.
Yeah.
They've just put two columns on right next to it. I guess it worked. I don't know if it was the most efficient option, but
cool. Well, they must, yeah. And contractors that do that kind of stuff, those are a certain breed too. So I look forward to that.
All right. So let's talk about what I've been doing here, I guess. Okay. I guess I'll start with what I've been reading through this book here, because that seems like a good place to start. The first chapter was just a quick introduction to the development process, right? So I didn't have much to say there. I finished the second chapter and moved on to the third chapter here. The second chapter was talking about the basics of real estate finance, and the biggest thing that I got out of reading that chapter that surprised me is that developers are essentially in the business of debt.
Yes.
And they make money out of debt. And the larger debt they can leverage from a bank for their project, the more money they make off of the project, even though the bank takes on more risk. And the bank actually makes more money too if they're willing to take the risk of failure on it. So that was really interesting to me. For some reason, I was thinking into my head maybe less debt would actually be a better thing, but that works for a house. But
yeah, that works for a family or an individual,
but not for an income-producing property. Where
right.
Over the course of 30 years, if you can get 80% of your project funded by debt, you make dramatically more money than if you fund it with 50% debt and 50% of your own money.
That's right.
So that was really interesting. And then it talked about a few different ways of valuing projects, and it's a lot more complicated, but the book does a pretty good job explaining it, so I'm glad I chose this one over that other textbook that I was looking at. And then in chapter 3, it starts talking about land value and acquisition. So it kind of it was looking at a way to evaluate how much land you can afford to buy. So it's kind of like a backwards approach where you need to know everything about the project before you can actually officially say, this is how much I can afford to buy. Mm-hmm. So this process that it was talking about is it's the process that you would do after you've already put maybe $10,000 to tie up the land, and then figure out if it's actually going to be worth it to put the next $2 million in mm-hmm. to actually. So it's a complicated method. That's the type of thing that you would do on a very large project. But the smaller scale individual buildings that we're looking at here, I can't imagine that this process would be gone through. Do you know Irwin Orchards in South Lyon? It's a apple orchard in South Lyon.
Yeah, yes, I do. I know of it. I've never been there, but I know of it.
Well, they've been trying to sell it for a long time now, and they've been just recently they were talking to Pulte Homes, about selling it, and Pulte Homes is going to put like 450 suburban homes on this lot, which is a huge grab for them because that is a stupid amount of money. I imagine it's hundreds of millions of dollars that
Sure.
they're potential to make off of that. But anyway, that's the sort of project where they would do that. They would give a little bit of money to the owner to tie up the land so they don't sell it to anybody else while they figure out, is this going to make sense? Is the city going to let us do this?
Right.
And this is the sort of calculation that they would go through. This is how much I can afford to pay you for how much I'm going to make, and this is why.
Right.
So that was what this calculation was. I might attempt to do it. I might not, but it's a step ahead. It's a step further down the road.
Right. I understand.
So that was that. Interesting, anyway.
Sure.
Okay. And I remember what I told you I was going to do last week. I was going to look at apartment rental costs and what the land costs were going for in downtown Detroit, specifically in the North End.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the rents first. What I found when I was going through all of these, I went through like 8 or 9 different websites looking at what rents were going for. Yeah, it took me all day. Houses are renting for almost exactly $1 a square foot in the North End. There is almost no variation on that currently. Apartments are going from about 0.8 to 0.9 cents a square foot to $1.25 on the areas that get closer down to the North New Center area, further south.
So $1.25 a square foot for apartments near the M1 rail in our location.
Yes. So when we compare that to the rule of thumb for rent costs that I got from that Incremental Development Alliance.
Right.
So I don't know if I have that open still. It's they gave some rules of thumb for rent thresholds for building types. So I guess I'll relate that back to you real quick so we can compare the two. For a one-stair walk-up, which is the sixplex, if you remember, and the triplex,
Yep.
and the multi-use complex, I intentionally tried to keep it down to one stair. For about $1.25, you can afford a one-stair walk-up, which means you can get up to 3 stories if you want for that low of a rent. If you can get up to $1.50 a square foot, you can afford 2 stairs or multiple stairs. So if I want to get the row houses to work, I think I need to get $1.50. But everything else I think I can get financed for $1.25, but I haven't run the numbers on it yet. That's just me relating the rule of thumb that they gave me to what I see happening in the North End. So that was that. Oh, and the commercial market in the North End is about 50 cents a square foot a month, from what I saw. But that's a little bit more arbitrary and difficult to quantify because there's not a whole lot of commercial in the area. So that the type of commercial that we have and that I was suggesting in this project, those 2 end units, it's not the type of commercial that you would make money on. It's the type of commercial that you would put there to increase the value of the residents and of the residential that you're putting in.
Right.
So you might actually end up losing money on the commercial side of it just because you want to increase the value of the residential, which is actually a common thing that developers like to do.
Yeah, and in LIHTC, sort of financing scenarios where you set aside 20% of the housing opportunities for low-income tax credit, you actually have to provide ground floor commercial space, right? That you might have thought that you could put a coffee shop in, but no, you have to actually put in community space because those spaces become the living rooms, right, for the small community that you're building there. So it helps you maybe raise the rent a little bit more than sort of standard rate, given that aspect, or that given that community space benefit. But not much. It's not as much as you would if you were able to put a neighborhood business in that space. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Yeah. All right. So that was that, and then I was looking at land costs and housing costs in the North End too. This was a little bit more difficult for me to quantify and relate back to my land here, partially because I didn't find too many vacant lots that were for sale in the North End, which tells me that they've already been purchased or people want to keep their lots, which is a good thing because they see the potential in the neighborhood. But I found 2 or 3, which isn't a whole lot to base anything off of, that were going for about $1 a square foot for sale. These are just random residential lots sparse throughout the North End. And then there was one on Oakland further north that was selling for $50,000, which obviously nobody's going to buy because it was 7,500 square feet. And the owner was trying to sell it for 50 grand, completely empty.
Wow. So what does a 40 foot by 125 lot? I don't have my calculator here. What does that come out to at that cost per square foot?
It comes out to around 10,000 to 15,000,
Yeah.
maybe less depending upon the size of the lot.
Yeah.
And I've got some really, really small lots here.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then I was looking at the houses too. So the houses that are in particularly poor condition, completely falling apart, are selling for somewhere between 20 to 40K.
Right.
Depending upon the condition, if they're duplex, amount of square footage. I didn't see a single lot over 40K that was in terrible condition. So the single family and the duplex that are basically falling apart should be somewhere between 20 to 30, 35K, I think, for purchase.
Yeah. I think my hunch was that everything was going to be around 35K just as a blended number. That's if it had a house on it, regardless of its, well, if it had a house that was condemnable, falling apart, or unoccupied, that I would think of it as a 35K price point.
Okay, I will take your opinion there because you work in Detroit a lot more than I do. Yep. And then the one occupied duplex, I was looking at that, and houses that are in good condition but not great were somewhere between, or not in a good location. Let's see here. I wrote it all down. Lots in decent to good condition. We're going from 40, 45K on the low end up to 90 to 100K, depending upon location, how new the construction is. So there's a lot of different factors that go into that one. I think what I wrote down here for that duplex was I think I was going to pay about probably have to pay somewhere between 60 to 80K for that duplex. Is what I wrote down.
Gotcha.
So let me do a screen share here, and I'll show you the numbers that I threw onto this map that I made last semester.
Good.
And we can talk about it a little bit more. Screen share. Okay, you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so we can bump the single family and the duplex up to 35K, maybe the duplex 40, 45.
Yeah, I mean, really, 438 is your heftiest investment, isn't it? Because it's the most coherent. It's the deepest lot. It has an accessory structure with a 2-car garage. Interesting. And it's actually a big house too. I mean, it's Okay.
It's a pretty big house. I think right now it used to be a duplex at some point, but I think only one family's living in it right now. So they probably
Sure.
did some light interior renovations. So the corner lots I bumped up to about $3 a square foot for purchase from the dollar that I was seeing the vacant lots go for. Um, the lots in the middle, which are really small, I pushed up to about $2 a square foot ish. Uh, but again, it's hard to estimate how much I would have to pay for these lots because number one, they're not for sale. I would
Right.
have to go out and find the owner and say, how much do you want for this?
Right.
And they could say 40K, but I just don't know that. So what I might end up having to do is assume some of these numbers and keep them right here with where the market is for most of the
Yeah,
lots.
I think you're just for the sake of this exercise, I think that's safe. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously these things are going to have a sliding valuation given the market.
yes, yeah, that there's that, and I'd say that this independent study is less about being 100% accurate and more about
The process.
the process, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's the other part of it too. And if I do end up going back to it, I could always work backwards from like that other calculation I was telling you about earlier. I
Yes.
could always work backwards and say this is how much I can afford to pay for the land. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can get it for that. So I think I can assume somewhere around these numbers, maybe on the high end, just to be safe, and start moving into that calculation worksheet I showed you,
Okay.
just so I have that, and then I can move into the next step from there.
Good.
So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Good.
I
Good.
don't know if you have anything else to say.
No, no. Except what's on deck for us next week?
Um, well, I'm gonna fill out that preliminary cost analysis worksheet that I showed you last week. I'm actually gonna fill it out for next week. I'm gonna see if I can get through the land acquisition chapter in the book here.
Good.
Um, and then I'll have to figure it out from there because I think I'm a little bit ahead of myself with what I thought I was gonna do with the schedule.
Sure. I was just opening that up right now. So we're finishing up week 3, financial real estate research. Yeah, you're already getting into the spreadsheet.
All right. Yeah. So where did I put it? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I thought I was a week ahead of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's okay.
So I'll spend a yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that at all, actually.
No,
I'm glad that I am.
Me too. And maybe some of the reading won't be so clear cut, and that might slow things down. But even finishing earlier wouldn't be objectionable as well. So that at the end of the sort of schedule, that wouldn't be problematic. Is Saturday morning convenient for you?
Saturday morning is fine. Obviously Wednesday is going to be an issue. Potentially could be an issue for both of us if
yeah,
we.
Probably more for me, just because it's a rush to get home and eat, and even though class starts at 6:30. So let's maybe look at Saturday mornings, and we'll that'll give us a full week between now and then, and on Friday let's touch base to sort of make the arrangements in time. This hour of the day is good. We can do it earlier if you've got errands and stuff like that. Just that today worked out better for me at this hour.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I didn't want to do it too late because I don't want to get in the way of your day or get in the way of my day or anything.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. So I like it. I like taking care of it straight away. And then there's another book that I need to find it, and I know that I've for some reason not been able to find it every time I've looked for it. But it's a book on development, and I think I'd like to suggest that you read it after the semester ends. It talks about development at the sort of higher, bigger level. Not that Pulte's not big, but like New York scale development. And but I can never remember the name of it. It's a small book. I have literally dozens and dozens and dozens of books, and I've just never been able to spy it again after I read it. I must have, it might have because it's small, it might have pushed back behind books that are facing out on the shelf. So I need to look for it, and I'll get you the name of it. But my thinking is that a guy named Levy, or Jonathan Levy, was the author. But again, I'm not sure. So let me find that, and I want to share that with you. I'll give me a couple of weeks to do that.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you then.
Yep, bye.
Bye-bye.